Have you ever wondered? Why do we feel so much suffering, anger, anxiety, and restlessness? Why do we often feel we're never enough, always needing more to feel better than someone else? If you look deeply, you'll see that all these feelings have a common root: attachment to the self. The self, the I, we spend our whole lives defending, protecting, and polishing, is actually just an illusion. The Buddha taught that what we call me is nothing but a temporary gathering of body, feelings, memories, thoughts, and consciousness. This is the essence of Anatta, the principle of non-self. There is no fixed, permanent I behind all our experiences. But because we don't see this clearly, we cling to the idea of a solid, separate self. We live caught in a subtle but powerful illusion that we must protect this self at all costs, prove its worth, make it better than others, or we risk losing who we are. This constant grasping and defending is where so much suffering begins. When someone praises us, we feel inflated. When someone criticizes us, we feel wounded. When we're recognized, we feel proud. When we're overlooked, we feel small and hurt. Our entire life turns into a restless chase, trying to build up an identity that can never truly be secured. The more tightly we hold on, the more we fear losing it. Buddhism doesn't deny that a temporary self exists. Of course, in daily life, we need a body, a name, an identity to relate to the world. But the problem starts when we mistake this temporary bundle for something permanent and unchanging. This is how we trap ourselves in cycles of craving, anger, and delusion. Letting go of the self doesn't mean rejecting who we are or abandoning our responsibilities. Instead, it means living in harmony with reality, seeing that everything is impermanent, conditioned, and interconnected. Nothing is worth clinging to as mine forever. In this video, I'd like to share some essential ideas to help you look deeper into the self. What is the self according to Buddhism? You'll see how what we call I is really just the 5 aggregates: form, feelings, perceptions, mental formations, and consciousness. Why is clinging to the self the root of suffering? When we see that the self is only a process, we understand why comparison, pride, and inferiority have no solid ground to stand on. Practical ways to let go of the self a little more each day. How can we live in this world, working, loving, relating, while staying rooted in the freedom of non-self? You'll see that letting go of the self doesn't make you weak or indifferent. Quite the opposite, when I is no longer at the center of every thought and reaction. There is so much more space for understanding, compassion, and real connection. When you're no longer terrified of being insulted or losing your image, anger softens. Arguments become pointless. Fear dissolves. The biggest fear, losing me, loses its grip when you see there never was a permanent me to lose in the first place. This freedom doesn't come from somewhere outside, it's here. Right now, in every mindful breath. When you see that everything is temporary and flowing, you can finally rest. I hope this video opens a new doorway for you to look within and see the self more clearly. Sometimes, it only takes a single moment of insight, I am not these thoughts and feelings, to begin a whole new journey toward living lighter, freer, and more awake. If you find this topic meaningful, please subscribe to the Dharma Journey, so we can keep exploring Buddhism, meditation, and everyday mindfulness together. And I'd love to hear from you. What parts of your self feel hardest to let go of? What happens if you loosen your grip, just a little, each day? Thank you for being here, for listening, and for planting seeds of awareness in your own heart. 1. What is the self? In Buddhism, the concept of self, ego, isn't a truly existing, permanent entity as many of us assume. Instead, the self is an illusion, a bundle of habits, memories, thoughts, and emotions that we mistakenly hold on to as me. The Buddha taught that a human being is simply a temporary combination of the 5 aggregates, skandhas. Form, rupa, the physical body, cells, flesh, bones. Feeling, vedana. Sensations, pleasant, unpleasant, or neutral experiences that arise every moment. Perception, sana recognition, the mental process of labeling, remembering, and interpreting what we encounter. Mental formations, sakra volitions, thoughts, intentions, and mental habits that shape our actions. Consciousness, via awareness, the knowing. The stream of consciousness that perceives and discerns. These five aggregates are in constant motion, rising and falling moment to moment. The body changes, sensations shift. Memories fade or distort, mental habits evolve, and even consciousness itself is never static, it's conditioned by countless factors inside and out. Yet we cling tightly to the deep-rooted belief. There is a real, solid, unchanging me. From that belief, so many illusions are born. We build our entire life around protecting this self, proving it, polishing it, defending it from anything that might threaten it. We think, I must succeed and be better than others. I need to be recognized and admired. I must not fail. But at its core, these thoughts are just mental fabrications, patterns learned from society, family expectations, endless comparisons. Over time, this illusion of self becomes an invisible prison, trapping us inside the walls we unknowingly build for ourselves. Whenever the ego feels threatened, when we fail, face criticism, or lose status, pain flares up instantly. We react with anger, fear, shame, or sadness. Why? Because we believe there is a real me being hurt or diminished. But if we look deeply, we see something liberating. There is no such solid self. There is only a flow, sensations come and go, memories appear and fade, thoughts arise and dissolve. The body ages, weakens, transforms, and eventually disintegrates. No single aspect stays fixed long enough to be called me. Not seeing this truth of non-self, Anatta, is what keeps us stuck in cycles of suffering. Because we believe so deeply in the I, we constantly get caught in gain and loss, praise and blame, pride and shame. We fear being insignificant, unloved, or inferior. And the deeper the fear, the more we suffer. The Buddha compared this illusion of self to an onion. Peel back layer after layer, and you find nothing solid at the core. Everything is just conditions coming together temporarily. Understanding this doesn't mean we deny our existence or abandon responsibility. On the contrary, it frees us to live with more ease. When we see the self as just a temporary process, we cling to it less fiercely. We can still work hard, grow, and contribute, but we're no longer chained to external labels or the need to constantly prove our worth. Success no longer defines us. Failure no longer destroys us. Praise and blame lose their power to shake us so deeply. Seeing the self clearly, and seeing its empty nature, is the first step toward real freedom. It cuts through the invisible chains that bind us. It opens up a spacious, unshakable freedom that no one can take away, because it comes from wisdom, not from anything outside us. When we truly understand the ego, we begin to live more lightly in this world, no longer caught up in endless comparisons or battles to defend a fragile self-image. And in that freedom, we can finally care for others and ourselves wholeheartedly, because the heaviest burden has been lifted, the burden of endlessly proving we are someone in the eyes of the world. 2. Why is the ego the root of suffering? Have you ever noticed what wounds you most deeply? It's rarely just what people say or do, it's how their words or actions threaten the self you believe must be protected at all costs. At the heart of so much pain is this powerful belief. This self is real, important, and must be defended. When we see the self as solid and permanent, we inevitably carry a constant fear. Fear of loss, losing respect, power, or people we love. Fear of damage to our pride, fear of being humiliated or looked down on. Fear of comparison, the anxiety that we don't measure up or will be left behind. These subtle fears shape our thoughts, decisions, and emotions every single day, whether we realize it or not. Take a simple example. When someone praises us, our ego swells with pleasure and pride. But when someone criticizes us, that same ego feels wounded, we grow angry, defensive, or ashamed. And so we repeat this cycle endlessly, rising and falling, up and down, never truly free. From praise and blame, right and wrong, gain and loss, the ego grows more tangled and complex. We spend so much energy shielding it, polishing it, trying to prove it is worthy, not realizing that this clinging keeps us trapped in suffering. The Buddha called this clinging upadana, attachment to the wrong view of self. When we cling, we forget that everything is impermanent, dependent on causes and conditions. We take passing thoughts and feelings to be solid. From this grasping, the poisons of greed, anger, and ignorance arise. We crave things to feed and protect the ego. We grow angry when the ego feels threatened. We remain blind to the fact that the ego itself is an illusion. Samsara, the cycle of birth and death, is not just about being reborn in other realms. It's this endless rebirth of suffering in each moment, as long as we cling to I, me, and mine. Freedom begins the moment we see that the self is not real in the way we think. Everything is impermanent, there's nothing solid to hold on to. When we see this competition and conflict, we feel we must be better, more successful, more admired. Compassion melts this wall. When you wish others happiness, you naturally expand beyond the cramped boundaries of me. Try sitting quietly for a few moments each day and silently offer this wish: may all beings be happy. May those I love be safe and peaceful. May even those I dislike find freedom from suffering. At first, this may feel awkward or forced. But with practice, you'll notice something subtle and beautiful. The line between me and them begins to fade, and a warm sense of connection replaces it. Compassion is not just a noble ideal, it is a powerful medicine for dissolving the illusion of self. Letting go of the ego doesn't mean disappearing from life. In fact, it means showing up more fully, more freely, and more authentically. You still care, love, work, and take responsibility, but without being chained by the endless question, who am I trying to be? Or, how do others see me? And right there, in that moment of softening, when the burden of the ego drops away, you touch a freedom no one can take from you. A freedom that doesn't come from the outside world, but from seeing clearly that there is nothing to hold on to in the first place. For you don't have to become anyone. Among all the Buddha's teachings, perhaps one of the most simple yet profound truths is this: you don't have to become anyone at all. From a young age, the world trains us to believe we must become someone special, more successful, more admired, more accomplished than others. We're given endless standards to measure ourselves against: grades, titles, status, wealth, praise, reputation. The more we chase these, the more we drift away from our true nature. We trade our inner freedom for a place in someone else's eyes, yet strangely, when we finally arrive at that place, we often feel emptier than before. Why? Because all these things we strive to become revolve around the ego, yet the ego itself has never truly existed as a solid thing. As long as we haven't seen this truth, we'll keep striving, comparing, competing, and trying to prove we're better or more special. But this cycle is endless, because the ego is a hungry ghost. Feed it with success, and it wants more. Feed it with praise, and it fears blame. Feed it with status, and it trembles at the thought of failure. Only when you touch non-self, Anatta, do you finally feel the lightness of taking off the heavy armor you've worn so long you mistook it for your own skin. When you see clearly that the ego was never real, you become less reactive to praise and blame, because you know praise is just wind and blame is just wind, passing by, with nothing solid to cling to. You stop feeling envy when others succeed, because what is there to compare when there's no you to win or lose? You gain the freedom to live in alignment with your true nature, without acting, posturing, or endlessly proving you are somebody. This is true inner freedom, a freedom that doesn't depend on status, wealth, or others' approval. It doesn't mean you withdraw from life or stop caring. In fact, you act more wholeheartedly. Work more mindfully, and love more deeply, but without being chained by the fragile image of a me that must be constantly protected. You can still succeed, contribute, and create beautiful things, but you know they are like waves rising and falling on the ocean's surface. You don't mistake the waves for who you are. You don't cling to them or fear their passing. And when you truly understand this, a deep relief appears in your heart. You don't have to become anyone, because here and now, you already are enough as you are. True happiness doesn't lie in how much you have or who you are in others' eyes. It lives in the moment you stop looking for yourself in illusions. And when there is no longer the burden of becoming, you can finally live, genuinely, freely, and fully awake to each fleeting moment of this precious life. I hope today's video helps you see more clearly. The ego is just an illusion, a shadow made up of countless memories, thoughts, emotions, and habits that we mistakenly believe are me. For so long, human beings have carried the burden of proving themselves, protecting the image of I in the eyes of the world. We chase fame, status, power, wealth, mostly because we fear that without them, I will have no value. But look closer, everything in this world is impermanent. Beauty fades, status changes, possessions disappear. The only thing that continues is the flow of mind, and even that is not fixed, it's a process, not a permanent self. The Buddha pointed out a simple truth that most people overlook. There is no real self to cling to. What we call the ego is just an illusion built from the 5 aggregates: form, feeling, perception, mental formations, consciousness. Because we mistakenly take this I to be real, we live in fear of loss, we get caught in praise and blame, we cling to winning and losing, right and wrong. So much of our suffering is rooted in this misunderstanding. But here's the beautiful part. You don't have to destroy the ego by force. You only need to see it for what it really is. Each day, just a little more mindfulness, a little more awareness, a little more compassion for yourself and others, and slowly, the layers of the ego naturally fall away. When you see clearly that anger is just a passing feeling, not your true self, you loosen one chain. When you sit quietly and breathe, simply aware of your breath without any I to prove, you loosen another knot. When you look at others with compassion and wish them well instead of comparing, you dissolve the wall between me and them. This is the Buddha's path to letting go of the ego, not extreme, not forced, but built on insight and loving kindness. Moment by moment, breath by breath, you can free yourself. No longer a prisoner of praise or blame. No longer bound by comparison or competition. No longer afraid of losing what the ego clings to. You can still live fully, work, love, and contribute, but you do it without being tied down by the illusion of a self that must always be defended. That is true inner freedom, freedom that doesn't depend on status, wealth, or how others see you. This freedom is nirvana here and now, not a distant promise, but the quiet reality of living without grasping at illusions. Remember this. No one is forcing you to become someone just to be worthy. You are enough as you are when you come home to your clear, peaceful, natural mind. If you found this video helpful, please subscribe to the Dharma Journey. Your support gives me the encouragement to keep sharing more about meditation, Buddhism, and the journey to discover true happiness, a happiness that doesn't come from the outside, but rises from within. I would also love to hear from you. What challenges do you face when trying to let go of the ego? Does it make you feel afraid, empty, or does it bring relief and freedom? Please share your thoughts in the comments. Your story might be the spark that inspires someone else walking the same path. Thank you for watching and for giving yourself this moment to pause and reflect. May you always be peaceful, mindful, and walk more lightly on the path back to your true self.